Welcome back to the Flip Bama Flip podcast. I'm your host, Victoria, and I am coming to you, unfortunately, at the end of the Alabama Gymnastics 2026 season, as the University of Alabama did not advance from the regional finals to nationals. We were, as we've talked about, in the quote unquote region of death. That proved to be truly living up to that name, as we saw another team that didn't make it, Utah, and a 49-year run. They've been to nationals 49 years in a row. We're looking to make it 50 and didn't quite make it. The two teams to advance out of our region were UCLA and no one saw this, Minnesota. I guess maybe Minnesota saw this. I know they had belief in their team, but they really came out of nowhere and just surprised everyone. And frankly, to me, looked actually like the best team in the meet last night, even though they didn't finish first, they finished second. But we're going to talk all about the meet, kind of our thoughts about it. What does this mean for the future of Alabama, this team, this program? And that's something that we'll be talking for many future podcasts to come, but one thing at a time. So, last night, we were in the regional finals. Again, it was us, UCLA, Utah, and Minnesota. And we started on beam. I was hesitant, but also not hesitant because of how we've been performing on beam. We had a really great beam rotation at SEC championships. We had a good, pretty good to great beam rotation in the first round of the regional, so the regional semifinals. So starting on beam didn't make me nervous. I felt like we had enough in our bank to go, okay, we can do this, and we've done this. We have the data to show that we can do this. But anytime you're starting off, if you've got some nerves, you don't really want to be on not just a 4-inch piece of wood that is the balance beam, but that wood is on top of a riser or podium that has a little bit of a wobble to it. So that's why sometimes on beam, when they're at meets where they are on a podium or they're on one of those risers, you might see people make uncharacteristic mistakes or need some time to adjust to it because there's just a little extra shake to it. And beam is hard enough as it is when the beam is not shaking. So starting there, if you've just got a little bit of extra nerves, that can translate into catastrophe. But we put together what I think was our best beam rotation from the entire season. Now, the scores did not reflect that. And I'm going to try not to harp too much on the scores because they are what they are. Scoring in NCAA is it is what it is. It's something that gets talked about ad nauseum. And so I kind of don't want to just continue to talk about it. There's enough on kind of the national level where people are talking about it and calling for oversight and calling for accountability because it's getting to the point where people are not wanting to watch the sport anymore. I will never not watch, so that's not going to be me, but I will pull my hair out. And I think you can probably see I have some extra maybe white hairs coming out because of NCAA scoring. But it's gotten to the point where there has been big issues. And I think beam was our rotation where just overall, I felt like we were underscored. The team was 6 for 6 for stuff landings. I mean, they were just cranking out routine after routine. It was so great to see. And one of the surprises of the night was we got to see Azariah on beam. She competed on beam, I think, the first meet of the season, and then we never saw her on beam after that. Now we got to see her compete in the anchor spot, and she did a phenomenal job. She actually at one point missed a connection. She missed one of her connections, and you could see her immediately recalibrate in her brain of what she needed to do to make up for the missed connection so she could have a 10.0 start value, and which she did, and she did beautifully. It looked like she simply redid the skill as it was intended to be done the first time. So she did take a little bit of a deduction for the missed connection because she was wobbly. That's why she missed it. And so She did get a deduction for that, but the rest of the routine was just beautiful. And one of my thoughts when I was watching that was, okay, if she's competing on beam, she's probably competing in the all around. And I wondered if that was a strategy by the coaching staff to give her a chance to qualify as an individual, even if the team did not move on. So you'll notice if you hung around and listened to the post meet commentary, they not only announced which teams were moving through, but which individuals on the teams that did not advance through the regional. And that includes the semifinals as well, which is why we see Oralee Tran from Iowa. She was the gymnast who moved on for bars because she got a perfect 10 in the semifinals, even though Iowa did not advance to the regional finals. So the way individuals qualify, it's anybody who was competing at that regional, semifinals, or finals, and who had the highest scores. So my thought was maybe they were trying to give her a chance to qualify either on beam as an individual or as an all-around qualifier because her other scores were so high. Now, the unfortunate part, I'm going to kind of preview ahead for us, was that because Minnesota made it, and Utah didn't, a lot of those individual spots went to individuals from Utah. So unsurprisingly, Avery Neff, who is third in the all-around going into the regional finals, she was the one who advanced as the all-arounder from our region. And there were a lot of other specialists. So Anna Pararariu, and I'm never going to get used to saying her name, Anna Pararariu, she advanced for beam. And so there were specialists from Utah. Had Utah advanced, Alabama would have had some individualists move through. But unfortunately, the way it shook out, we did not. But back to beam. Again, I think it was our strongest beam rotation of the season. The team was locked in and they looked calm. That was a kind of a criticism that I've had of the team throughout the season is that sometimes on beam, we can look a little bit rushed. We can look like we're moving through our dance elements so sharply and so quickly that it looks nervous or it looks like we're trying to cover up something. And so last night, we really were able to just move slowly through the movements, really polish, have everything have a sense of polish. Ryan Fuller did her triple series again, and it was fantastic again. It was just, I left that rotation breathing a sigh of relief, but also feeling really optimistic about our chances because beam has been touch and go for us this season. It's been really great. And it's been not so great. But again, unfortunately, some of the routines that we saw Alabama go 9.85 later in the meet or for other teams, we saw those getting scored 9.9, sometimes higher. So that was a little bit disappointing because the team really delivered. And in general, I don't think that the scores reflected it, at least not in the manner that the whole regional was being judged. So again, if they were kind of holding everybody to that standard, I wouldn't have a problem with it. In fact, I'm the one who's usually calling for we need to have more deductions. We need to be taking more so that the truly great gymnasts are getting the high scores and kind of getting singled out. But the frustration is that for some teams, they get deductions taken off, and then other teams, when they make the same errors, those deductions are not being taken. So that was a little bit frustrating, but it's hard to be frustrated when you're heading into floor, which again was one of our strongest events. And unfortunately, I think some of those uncharacteristic mistakes followed us from the end of the season and the first regional semifinals into regional finals. Chloe had a great double tuck. So in the first semifinals, she had a big slide back on that first double tuck. She absolutely nailed it this time. But her second pass got a little bit wonky. There's some form issues on that front layout. She did kind of pull it together and was able to get that stag jump done and completed in a way that I think really minimized the deductions, but those deductions were there. Jasmine Cowley was in the number 2 spot. So Rachel Rybicki, who fell in regional semifinals and who we have heard has been struggling with some back issues throughout the seasons. It's why we didn't see her at the beginning of the season, and it's why sometimes we see her, sometimes we don't. Jasmine filled in for her, and I think Jasmine gave her best floor performance of the season. So again, it's hard. This meet is hard because we didn't accomplish the task that we wanted and we didn't have the outcome that we wanted. But you're going to hear me say a number of times that individuals gave their best performance of the season. We knew it was a steep hill to climb. We knew it was going to take a ton to get out of this regional. And like I said, nobody had on their bingo card that Minnesota was going to show up and just dominate the way that they did. But it was great to see. Jasmine is a freshman, so we will get to see her develop over the course of 3 more seasons, and she really gave us a lot to love about that floor routine, a lot that was going better. At the beginning of the year, I remember thinking that her first pass lacked amplitude, and I was always kind of clutching and flinching and hoping that she would get it all the way around. This time it looked beautiful. And one of the things that I really loved, I wrote on my notes that once she finished her second pass, you could tell she knew she hit it. She hit her 2 tumbling passes, and you could just see the performance quality, which was already pretty high, just bump up even higher. And you could see her joy, and she was able to just really perform. And that was so beautiful to see. She got a 9.825. It seemed a little bit low for what she performed, and again, what we were seeing other teams being scored as, but it was still very good, especially in terms of kind of being called up at the last minute to be able to see her have the mental fortitude to be able to just go, okay, my number's up, let's go, and deliver. That was really great to see. Mackenzie Matters had another great performance. I think she has really solidified herself as part of this floor lineup for years to come. She ended up with a 9.85. I thought she had a great double tuck to start off with. She has historically sometimes struggled with coming up a little bit short, not so much that it's incredibly noticeable, but it's enough where you see her, she's not lunging back. She's almost doing kind of splitting her legs because she's just a hair short. This one, she was right on the money. In the second pass, she did have a little bit of trouble with that landing. There was kind of an extra step that she had to take just to maintain her balance, but she kind of danced out of it pretty beautifully. But I think that's probably where her deductions came from. Azarea, this is the one I struggle with the most. I thought she did an absolutely beautiful job. Her first pass was clean. Her second pass was clean. Her dance elements are gorgeous. Her leaps are gorgeous. She got a 9.9. And when I compare her routine to the other individuals across that meet who got a 9.9 or higher, I don't know what she's missing or what to say, like, oh, well, she needs to do this better. The amplitude is there. The precision is there. The difficulty is there. It's all there. And she's doing things extra. So I've talked about her ring jump before. It is beyond textbook. It's not, I wouldn't even say her ring jump is textbook because she does more than what is required in terms of the different elements for that skill. There's just not a way to get extra credit for doing something extra great. And so I really struggled with her score of a 9.9. Again, if they were kind of across the board taking deductions across from everybody at the same rate, I wouldn't have a problem. But I really thought that her score should be higher or that there were a number of other scores that should have been lower. Jamison Sears, she did great on her tumbling passes. She got tripped up again on that leap series where she does those sky high straddle jumps. And my hypothesis, I don't know if I'm correct, but my hypothesis is that because those are so beautiful and so great. She might even be trying to make them extra great and take them even higher and make them more extreme. And that is getting her a little bit out of control. So, in some ways, as much as I love how beautiful those are, that maybe taking them just a hair lower or not trying to push them farther might be the ticket for her, because I think she's taking a pretty big hit for being out of control. So her legs are not even when she's doing the split. The judges want to see those be completely even, and they're not. And I think that's where she's taking a bit. I did think 9.825 was a bit low. Again, compared to what we were seeing. And then Gabby Gladio, she had a slide on her first pass, which is uncharacteristic for her, but true to Gabby being Gabby, she just reined it all in, refocused, and just nailed the rest of her routine and ended up with a 9.9. So, in a nutshell, I don't think we capitalized on floor the way that we would have needed to keep it close, to give the other teams a run for their money. I think Minnesota, again, continued to hit and continued to put pressure, and we saw some of the other teams falter at times, but none of the teams ended up counting any of their falls. So UCLA had falls, Utah had falls, we had falls. None of us had to count a fall because we didn't have two in the same rotation. So Minnesota, I don't believe they had any falls. I think they hit all their routines and they really put a lot of pressure on the other three teams. So as we left floor, I was kind of like, oh, this was not the position I necessarily wanted to be in leaving floor. I wanted to have a cushion or have made up a bit of ground, but we were still outside of those top two. And so going into vault, that's not the rotation you want to be on to try to make up ground, but it is what it is. We would have to go through it one way or the other, but it really felt like it was going to determine whether we were heading into bars with a chance to get in it or stay in it, or whether we were a little bit too far behind and it was kind of falling from our grasps. And vault, unfortunately, I've equated it to the run game of Alabama football, where it just at some point was going to catch up with us, and it caught up with us. There were times where we were able to overcome it, or when it was just good enough to where it didn't result in a bad outcome. But today, vault was what it was. It was what it's kind of been for a bit. And unfortunately, by the time we were done with the vault rotation, it was hard to see a path forward, especially since Minnesota was not blinking at all. But still, some really good things came out of vault. So first off, our leadoff was Jasmine Colley. We have not seen Jasmine in the vault lineup for quite some time. She had just been put in on the floor rotation unexpectedly and nailed it. So when she stepped up, I thought, okay, maybe she's feeling it tonight and just on, and that's why they put her in. And she drilled that vault, her Yurchenko 1.5. She absolutely drilled it. It was beautiful. She got a 9.875, which as a leadoff, that is a massive score. If you can start off around that 9.9, so 9.875, not too far off, you are in a great position. And she did. She held that end pose. Oh, I was so happy for her. She had herself a night. Unfortunately, what followed was a missed vault by Jamison Sears. She sat it back, which tells me she was going for the stick. I don't think with Jamison, power or lack of power is ever an issue. In fact, all season she had struggles with more of stepping forward and kind of bouncing forward because she had so much power. So you could tell by having the under rotation, she really was trying to go for that stick. And unfortunately, in blind landings, if you under rotate it, it's really hard not to sit those down, which she did. And that resulted in a 9.2. Gabby Gladio followed her. She had a pretty sizable step forward, and ended up with a 9.725. And I got a lot of questions about this vault. And the angles that it was shown at on TV were not great. So please take whatever I say with a grain of salt. But when you take into account the sizable step, which can be up to 2/10, if the judges want to take it, they can take up to 2/10, as well as the soft knees during the air. So Gabby kind of consistently has some form breaks during the air. So if they take off another half a tenth to a tenth for that, that's kind of how we end up in this 9.725 range. So while I was not happy to see that be the score, I can see where the judges might have gotten that from. After Gabby, there was another switcheroo in the lineup, and we saw Kylie Kwame. And Kylie had just delivered on beam earlier in the meet. She got a 9.9 on beam. So again, kind of like Jasmine, I was like, maybe Coach Ashley is just tapping into who's kind of just feeling it right now. And Kylie, just like Jasmine, went out there and stuck her Yurchenko 1.5. She got a 9.925. I was thrilled. And I think the difference, people have asked, what is the difference between her and Jasmine? I think when you look at Kylie's form in the air, she's just a bit straighter than Jasmine is, which I fully expect in the off season and before next season that Jasmine will get that form kind of ironed out a little bit, and we'll see her scoring higher on vault. But Kylie she nailed it. And the celebration, you could see Gabby just yelling into the team, it's not over. We're not out. And she wasn't wrong. But what we did need was we would have needed 2 more really lights out vaults from Jordan Paradise and from Azarea. And unfortunately, from Jordan, she had kind of a wonky landing on hers. It was a small to medium kind of step forward, but then when she stepped, you could tell she was still not settled, and she tried to kind of salute her way out of it. But I do think the judges took off for that as well, and that's how she ended up with a 9.75. So at that point, we know we're counting 2 scores in the 9.7s, and it really was going to be very difficult for us to move forward as one of the top 2 teams doing that. So last meet, we had to count a score in the 9.7s, and we had no scores in the 9.9s on vault. This time we did get a score in the 9.9s with Kylie Kwame's amazing Yurchenko 1.5, but we counted 2 scores in the 9.7s. And so we just didn't have enough to really make up for that, because the other scores in the 9.8s were on kind of the lower ends of that. So unfortunately, we went into bars pretty far behind and out of that second spot. But anything can happen. The other teams, we knew the pressure was on everybody, and sometimes pressure does crazy things. And so we weren't technically out of it, but we were going to need some help from either Minnesota and Utah and UCLA. Utah did help a little bit. They had a fall early on in their lineup, which means that the rest of the team has to play it safe. And we kind of saw this a little bit on our front too, in taking a fall in that second position. The rest of the team may have had to play it safe a little bit, and rather than going for the stick, had to go and do a vault, maybe over-rotate it a little bit to ensure that they didn't sit it down and we didn't have to count a fall, because that would have been disastrous. And so that might have been why we saw so many kind of jumps forward and bigger steps forward, because individuals were trying to make sure that they didn't fall. Utah got in that same position. It was one of their first gymnasts up who fell on the vault, and therefore they had to kind of play it safe a little bit. So we saw them, and again, they ended up not qualifying for the first time ever in their history. And I think that might have contributed to it somewhat. But on bars, Peyton started off. She has been just unstoppable in that leadoff position. What a absolute blessing to have somebody in the leadoff position who you just know is going to hit every single time. She stuck her landing, started off with a 9.875, just like Jasmine did on vault. When you start off with a 9.875, that is setting your lineup up to have multiple scores in the 9.9s. Gabby Gladio had a great routine. She scored a 9.85, which is generally what she scores on bars. She had a beautiful stuck landing. I think she has made so many improvements on bars this season. My hat is off to her because you can see it. It's visible, it's noticeable, just the improvements that she's made to her form throughout the bar routine. Natalia, I was so happy for her. Her last routine as a senior on the one event that she competes on, she sticks her landing, gets a 9.9. I was out of my seat for that. I was so happy. At this point, it didn't look like Alabama was going to make it into that number 2 spot. And I was just so happy for our seniors because they were going out in a way that I think just represented their careers so well. And I was so happy for her. Ryan Fuller had another great bar routine. She ended up with a 9.9. I thought that was maybe a little bit low, but bars, I think, is the hardest routines to judge from the couch because we get the worst angle to judge bars because we see things the judges don't see. They see stuff we don't see. It's hard to judge things like amplitude on dismounts and things like that. So she got a 9.9. From my couch, it seemed low, but I don't really know what it looked like to the judges. Chloe broke my heart for her, not for me as a fan, but for her. The routine that she gave, I don't think did her justice at all, nor do I think it should take away from how amazing she was all season. And unfortunately, I think there are going to be people who that's all they remember is that she just had an off routine in the finals and ended up scoring a 9.125. She fell on her landing, which is something that I've talked about before as being the highlight of her routine and so beautiful and so just precise in everything. There's no movement. The chest is up. The feet don't move. The arms don't swing. All of it. It's one of those things. You have those days. Those things happen. And again, my hope for her is just that she does not let that detract from the fact that she had a stranglehold on that number 1 bar worker spot for the vast majority of the season. But it definitely was disappointing to see and disappointing again for her. Azarea did a beautiful job. When she landed, again, she is landing in a way where you feel like she's going back. And so that's why she had the arm swings a little bit on her dismount and that she took the deduction for that. But the rest of the bar routine is just absolutely beautiful. I think, again, I kind of hit it in the beginning. What was most disappointing about this meet was not that we didn't make it through. I think that was always on the table simply because of who we were in the regionals with, but that we did not have any individuals go through as either all-arounders or as event specialists. And so that to me, again, doesn't seem to reflect the great work that the team did throughout the season. And that's hard. It's hard to swallow because I think it was just unfortunate timing for some of those routines and sometimes some unfortunate scoring that was going on that kept some of our individuals out of those individual spots. But like I said, it's hard to be mad or upset about the season because I do think it was a step in the right direction. There's so much to be proud of, and I hope this team is proud of themselves. I think people who know gymnastics and aren't just maybe the casual fans understand just how hard it was for them to go the entire season, last night included, to never score below a 197. That is incredible. And that shows a consistency and a high level of performance over a long period of time that is very hard to achieve. Oklahoma, again, is the only other team that's in that category. So the team, even despite falling short of their goals, showed us so much to be thankful for, to be excited about in the future. I mean, I'm ready for next season. I know they they probably need some weeks and months to rest and to get in the gym and work on things, but I'm already like, okay, when's the next season schedule coming out? Because I want to make sure that I find a way to get there at least for one meet because I'm so excited for what they're going to bring. And so even though our season is over, that doesn't mean that we're going to stop talking about this team, talking about what they did, talking about what's to come. We've got an exciting class coming in. So we hope that you stick with us. Again, the season's over, but the program continues. This is a team that I think is on a very upward trajectory. It's weird because last year we made it to nationals. This year we didn't, yet I think we did a better job this year. We just got into a regional that was always going to be very difficult to get out of. And so, unfortunately, we will be watching this year, but next year, I think things can be quite different. So it will be exciting. So please like this video, subscribe to our channel so that you get updates on the team. This week, we've got a lot of our commits who are competing in their regionals and states and all those types of competitions. So we're going to be talking about the newcomers. We're going to be talking about our seniors who are leaving the program. We're going to be talking about the program in general, NCAAs in general. I'm still going to nationals because I'm not going to miss a chance to see these other 8 teams perform and still pull my hair out about scoring, I'm sure. But I'll keep you all updated on that and be posting some things about that. But it was a great season. It was a great season. It was a season that motivated me to do this. I don't have time for a podcast and a website and social media and all those other things, but this team is so great and so likable. And I just fell in love with them. And I was like, okay, let's do this. So I hope you stay with us. We'll see you soon. Again, I'll be keeping you updated on all things Alabama gymnastics, college gymnastics. And until then, roll Tide forever.